Mr. Bennett, are you awake? A gentle female voice drifted into my consciousness. I forced my heavy eyelids open. The first thing I saw was a sterile white ceiling, my nostrils filling with a sharp, distinct smell of antiseptic. A hospital. Why was I in a hospital? I turned my stiff neck and saw a young woman in nurse's scrubs looking at me with concern. How are you feeling? Any discomfort? The nurse asked softly. I tried to speak, but my throat was painfully dry. What? What happened to me? My last memory was from the night of September 4, 2020. It was a Friday of Labor Day weekend. I'd been planning for weeks to finally confess my feelings the next day to the girl I'd had a crush on all through college, Olivia Harper. I'd been so nervous, I barely slept a wink. But what was happening now? The concern on the nurse's face deepened into a look of pity. You don't remember. You attempted suicide yesterday by slitting your wrists. Your family brought you in. Luckily, they found you in time. You're not in any mortal danger. Suicide. The word hit my brain like a sledgehammer, leaving me completely stunned. Me, Ethan Bennett, attempt suicide. What kind of joke was that? My life was just beginning. A bright future was waiting for me. I had the girl of my dreams to win over. Why on earth would I try to kill myself? Are you sure you have the right person? I asked urgently. What's the date today? September 5, 2020. The nurse gave me the kind of look you give a psychiatric patient. She picked up a clipboard from the table and pointed to the date. Mr. Bennett, it's October 8, 2025. Are you feeling a little confused? My mind went completely blank, incapable of thought. 5 years. 5 entire years had vanished from my life. What the hell happened in those 5 years? Why did I try to kill myself? Seeing my pale face and dazed expression, the nurse sighed, her voice softening. Don't overthink it. Just get some rest. We've already notified your wife. Her name is Olivia Harper, right? Though she didn't sound very pleased on the phone. We're not sure if she's coming. Wife. Olivia Harper. The name was a flash of light in my chaotic mind. Olivia was my wife. I'd succeeded. I was actually with her. A massive wave of joy washed over me, drowning out all the confusion and fear. So, not only did my confession work, but we got married. Then the suicide attempt. Was it just some stupid thing I did after a fight? It had to be. I started grinning like an idiot. Trading 5 years of my life for a marriage with Olivia Harper. That was a deal I'd take any day. Thank you, nurse. I'm fine now. I couldn't wait to see Olivia, to hold her, and tell her how much I loved her. The nurse, though puzzled by my sudden mood swing, simply nodded, told me to rest, and left the room. I lay in bed, buzzing with excitement, waiting for my wife. I imagined her walking through the door. Would she be angry, yelling at me, or would she be worried, sick, hugging me and crying? Either way, I felt a sense of overwhelming happiness. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text notification. I figured it was Olivia, maybe telling me she was on her way. My heart pounding with anticipation, I grabbed the phone from the bedside table. The screen lit up, displaying the message from Olivia Harper. The text read, "Ethan, stop playing these childish games. Is this really necessary? I have a major meeting today. I don't have time for your drama. When the doctor clears you, call an Uber and come home yourself." Those cold-typed words were like a bucket of ice water poured over my head, chilling me to the bone. Joy, excitement, happiness. Every positive emotion vanished in an instant, replaced by a piercing cold. Childish games. No time for my drama. Was this really my wife? The Olivia I first loved so deeply I almost died. And in her eyes, it was just a childish game. I stared at the message, reading it over and over. Every word was a needle stabbing into my heart. No, this couldn't be real. Something must have happened in those 5 years. Something I didn't know. I had to find out. With a trembling hand, I scrolled frantically through my contacts. Parents, friends, familiar names flew by until my finger stopped on one. Sophia Reed, my best friend from college. We were thick as thieves, even though she was a girl. After graduation, she became a cop, and we'd always kept in touch. No, according to this timeline, it looked like we hadn't spoken in over 3 years. The last chat history I had with her on WhatsApp was from 5 years ago. Would she even pick up? I didn't hesitate. I dialed the number. It rang for a long time. Just as I was about to give up, a voice came through. Hello, who is this? It was a woman's voice, cautious and distant, but the underlying tone was one I knew better than my own. Sophia, it's me, Ethan. My voice was hoarse. Silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence, so long I thought she was going to hang up. Ethan, Sophia's voice was filled with disbelief. Why? Why are you calling me? Didn't you say that? To make Olivia happy, you would never contact any of your female friends ever again. Sophia's words exploded in my ear like a thunderclap. To make Olivia happy, I wouldn't contact any female friends. Is that something I would do? The me I remembered was outgoing, confident, had friends everywhere. Sophia and I were practically family. I would cut off all my friends for a woman. Sophia, I didn't know what to say. My throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. Can you come pick me up from the hospital? I'm at Metro General. Sophia was silent for another moment. Then her voice turned serious. The hospital. What happened to you? Are you in some kind of trouble? I had an accident. I couldn't bring myself to say the word suicide. It was too humiliating. My head's a mess right now. I can't remember anything. The last thing I remember is 2020. Everything after that is gone. Amnesia. Sophia's voice shot up sharp with an urgency. She couldn't hide. Stay right there. Don't move. I'm on my way. She hung up. I clutched the phone. My palms slick with cold sweat. Sophia's reaction only intensified the growing sense of dread in my gut. What kind of person had I become over these last 5 years? The wait was agonizing. The hospital room was terrifyingly quiet. The only sound was the frantic thumping of my own heart against my ribs. Each beat fraying my fragile nerves. I closed my eyes, trying to summon a single memory from the lost years, but my mind was a blank slate, a hard drive that had been wiped clean. About half an hour later, the door to my room was thrown open. A woman in street clothes with a sharp practical haircut rushed in. She was tall with a lean build and piercing eyes. It was Sophia, but the woman in front of me was more mature than the girl in my memories. Her expression etched with a weariness I recognized from other cops. She strode to my bedside, looking me up and down. Her eyes were a complex mix of worry, anger, and something else. Pity. So, you really did manage to land yourself in the hospital, she said, her voice laced with frustration. Where's Olivia? Didn't she come? I shook my head and handed her my phone, showing her the text message. Sophia took the phone. As her eyes scanned the screen, her face turned to stone. Well. If it isn't Saint Olivia, she hasn't changed a bit, has she? She slammed the phone down on the nightstand with a loud thud. Ethan, do you see this? This is the woman you've been in love with for all these years. You nearly died for her. And to her, you're nothing but a joke. Her anger left me at a loss for words. I asked weakly, Sophia, what happened over the last 5 years? Why did I try to kill myself? Sophia took a deep breath, visibly trying to compose herself. She pulled a chair over and sat down. Her gaze heavy with pain. Ethan, you really don't remember anything. I nodded emphatically. Good. Forgetting might be for the best, she said with a bitter smile. Forgetting all that humiliation and pain. It's a blessing for you. She paused, then began her story. 5 years ago, you confessed and you and Olivia got together. All of us, your friends, were so happy for you. We thought you'd finally gotten your dream girl. But after that, you changed. You started pulling away from us. You wouldn't answer calls, wouldn't reply to texts. At first, we just figured you were wrapped up in your new relationship, so we didn't think much of it. Then one time, I was near your office for a case and wanted to grab lunch. You told me that Olivia didn't like you hanging out with other women and that I should stop contacting you. Sophia's voice was thick with suppressed fury. I almost laughed in your face. I asked you, Ethan, have you lost your damn mind? What are we? We grew up together. You're like my brother. And just because of something Olivia said, you were going to cut me off. Do you know what you said to me then? She mimicked a weak, pleading tone. You said, Sophia, I'm sorry. I can't make Olivia unhappy. She's my everything. From that day on, I never reached out to you again. And it wasn't just me. You cut off all your friends, guys and girls, with one excuse or another. My heart sank, plummeting into a bottomless abyss. 3 years ago, you two got married. You didn't tell any of your friends, just a quiet trip to the courthouse. We only found out through a mutual acquaintance. After the wedding, things got even worse. I heard you quit your job, which had a ton of potential. All because Olivia said she didn't like you working late or talking to female colleagues. So, you actually stay home. You became a stay-at-home husband. Your entire life revolved around laundry, cooking, cleaning, and waiting for her to come home. And what about her? Her career exploded. She became a billionaire CEO. Coming home later and later, treating you colder and colder. You started to get paranoid, insecure, terrified of losing her. You made her your entire world, but in her world, there was no room left for you. You developed depression, Ethan. Severe depression. This wasn't your first suicide attempt. Every time Olivia gave you the cold shoulder or was seen with another man, you'd pull this kind of stunt to threaten her, to beg her to look at you. And what was the result? She just looked down on you more. Saw you as a pathetic loser who could only resort to throwing melodramatic fits. Every word from Sophia was a knife, carving out a portrait of an Ethan I didn't recognize, displaying him in all his bloody, pathetic glory. That weak, timid, insecure clown who gave up his dignity and his entire world for one woman. Was that really me? I couldn't accept it. No, that's not me, I mumbled, my whole body trembling. I'm not that kind of person. But you are. Sophia's voice suddenly rose, her eyes turning red. Look at yourself. You're just skin and bones. Your face is paler than a sheet of paper. Do you know when I first saw you, I almost didn't recognize you. The Ethan I first remember was the kid who was all sweat and sunshine on the basketball court, not some ghost lying in a hospital bed who can barely speak. She stood up and started pacing the room, her chest heaving. I'll handle your discharge papers. We're getting out of this hellhole. Ethan, you listen to me. I don't care how pathetic you were before. Now that you've forgotten, you're going to start over. If you ever dare to try and kill yourself for that woman again, I'll be the first one to come after you. Her tone was harsh, but I could hear a tremor of fear in it. I looked at her, my heart a swirling mess of emotions. Shame, anger, and a sliver of relief at a second chance. I was lucky. I had forgotten. I was lucky I could start over. Sophia, thank you, I said, and I meant it. Sophia stopped pacing and glanced back at me, her expression softening. For what? We're friends. She snuffled. I'll go get the paperwork. You get dressed and wait for me. She turned and walked quickly out of the room. I pushed myself up, my body feeling drained of all strength. I looked down at the baggy hospital gown and the gauze wrapped around my wrist. A wave of profound humiliation washed over me. I, Ethan Bennett, had become the one thing I'd always despised, a complete and utter S. No, that wasn't me. Starting today, the Ethan who lived for Olivia Harper was dead. The man who is alive now was the Ethan from 2020. I got out of bed and found my clothes. It was a cheap set of sweats hanging loosely on my emaciated frame. I looked in the mirror at the pale man with vacant eyes and felt like I was staring at a stranger. Sophia returned quickly with the discharge papers. She supported me as we walked out of the room in silence. The hospital corridor was bustling with people all rushing somewhere. No one noticed us. No one knew that a man's life had been completely upended today. Stepping out of the hospital, the afternoon sun was blinding. I instinctively squinted. Sophia helped me in her unmarked police SUV and got in the driver's seat, starting the engine. "Where are we going?" I asked. "First, to a hotel." "You need a proper rest," she said as she drove. "You can't go back to that house." "Not yet. I'm afraid the second you see Olivia, you'll turn back into that spineless wreck." I didn't argue. I needed a space to be alone, to calm down and process this chaotic mess. The car moved smoothly through unfamiliar streets. I looked out the window at the towering skyscrapers and the blur of passing traffic, feeling like a caveman who had stumbled into the future. Everything both new and unsettling. It had only been 5 years, but it felt like I'd arrived in a different world, not the city I knew. Just then, my phone rang again. I picked it up. The caller ID read, "My whole world." The name made me sick to my stomach. It was Olivia. I glanced at Sophia. She shot a look at my phone screen and let out a cold laugh. "Answer it. I want to hear what she has to say." I took a deep breath and hit the green button. "Ethan, where are you? I sent my assistant to the hospital to get you." And he said, "You were already gone. What kind of tantrum are you throwing now?" A cool, impatient female voice came through the phone. The voice was both familiar and strange. Familiar in its tone, the one that still haunted my dreams. Strange in its delivery, full of condescending arrogance and casual irritation. I remained silent, unsure how to respond. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue?" Olivia's tone grew even more impatient. "I'm telling you, my patience has a limit. You have 10 minutes to get home immediately. Otherwise, you know the consequences." Her voice carried the unshakable authority of command. As if I weren't her husband, but an employee or a dog she owned. The rage that had been simmering inside me finally ignited. "Olivia," I said, enunciating each word, my voice so cold it surprised even me. "Who the hell do you think you are giving me orders?" The other end of the line went dead silent. I could practically picture the look of stunned disbelief on Olivia's face. According to Sophia, the me of the past 5 years had been utterly obedient, hanging on her every word. Forget talking to her in this tone. I probably wouldn't have even dared to raise my voice. From the driver's seat, Sophia shot me a surprised glance. A corner of her mouth lifting in an approving smirk. After a few seconds, Olivia's voice came back, now laced with offended fury and a barely perceptible hint of panic. "Ethan, what did you just say?" I said. "Who the hell do you think you are giving me orders?" I repeated. My tone even colder and more decisive than before. "Olivia, I'm not your employee and I'm definitely not your dog. So, drop the drill, Sergeant Act. It makes me sick." "You," Olivia seemed to be so angry she was speechless. "Are you on something? Or did that suicide attempt knock a screw loose?" "Ethan, I'm warning you. Don't try this with me. I don't have time to play your games." Games. There it was again. In her eyes, everything I did was an act. My heart turned to ice. "I'm not interested in playing games, and I'm definitely not interested in talking to you," I said calmly. "That's all." Without giving her a chance to respond, I hung up. The car was quiet, save for the low hum of the engine. Sophia broke the silence with a soft whistle. "Nice," she said, her voice full of satisfaction. "Now that's the Ethan I first knew. That's how you handle her. You can't let her think she can just walk all over you." I leaned back against the seat, feeling completely drained. That phone call had taken every ounce of courage I had. The courage to fight back against the pathetic man I had been for 5 years. Sophia, was I really that scared of her? I asked wearily. Sophia sighed, her tone complex. "It wasn't fear. It was love. You loved her so much you lost yourself. Loved her until you had no dignity left. You put her on a pedestal and she stomped you into the ground. Ethan, tell me right now, do you still have feelings for her?" I fell silent. Did I? When I found out she was my wife, I was ecstatic. When I saw her cold text, my heart shattered. When Sophia told me about the past 5 years, I felt humiliated and enraged. And when she spoke to me with that commanding tone, all I felt was disgust. The love I had carried with me from 2020, that pure burning love, seemed to have been completely extinguished in the span of an hour. "No," I said softly. "Good." Sophia breathed a sigh of relief. "I was really worried this was just another one of your mind games to get her attention. Forgetting her is the best thing for you and for everyone." The car soon pulled up in front of a decent-looking hotel. Sophia checked me in using her own ID. She walked me to the room. "Get some rest," she instructed. "Turn off your phone. Don't contact anyone. If you need anything, call me or the front desk. I'll bring you some dinner later." "Sophia, this is really too much trouble for you," I said, looking at her with immense gratitude. In the most chaotic and helpless moment of my life, she was the one who had reached out without a second thought. "Shut up," Sophia rolled her eyes. "We're friends, and you better remember this. You are never ever allowed to throw me away for any woman again." "I won't," I promised solemnly. "Never again." Sophia nodded and turned to leave. I entered the room, closed the door, and collapsed onto the soft king-size bed. The room was quiet, well insulated. I finally had a space to think alone. I closed my eyes. Sophia's words, Olivia's text and phone call. They all played on a loop in my head. The strange, pathetic Ethan who had lived for the past 5 years filled me with a profound sense of shame. And the arrogant, cold, billionaire wife, Olivia, filled me with an equal sense of alienation and disgust. Was this really the marriage I wanted? No, this wasn't it. What I wanted was equality, respect, a partnership where two people supported each other, not a relationship of enslavement and degradation. Since this marriage was rotten to the core, there was no reason to continue it. Divorce. Once the thought appeared, it took root in my mind and grew wildly. I wanted a divorce. I had to get a divorce. I had to take back my life, my dignity. The decision brought a sense of relief and resolve I hadn't felt before. Just then, a series of urgent knocks came from the hotel room door. Bang. 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 The sound was sharp and forceful, demanding entry. I frowned. Who could that be? Sophia just left. Who is it? I asked cautiously. There was no answer, but the knocking grew more violent. Ethan, open the door. I know you're in there. It was Olivia's voice. How'd she find me? My heart jumped. My first thought was Sophia. Did she? No. Impossible. Sophia would never sell me out. That meant Olivia must have tracked my location through other means, right? With her status and power, tracking a hotel check-in was probably child's play. I didn't open the door or answer. Ethan, if you don't open this door right now, I'll have hotel security break it down. Her voice, muffled by the door, was dripping with threats. I believed she would do it. Taking a deep breath, I got off the bed, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole. Under the bright hallway lights, Olivia stood poised and perfect. She wore a tailored power suit. Her makeup was flawless. And her hair was pulled back in an immaculate bun. She looked like a queen on her throne. Beautiful, but so cold she was unapproachable. Her face was a mask of impatience and anger as she raised her hand to knock again. I composed myself and opened the door. What are you doing here? I blocked the entrance, making it clear she wasn't welcome inside. Olivia froze for a second when she saw me. Seemingly surprised by my cold demeanor. She looked me up and down, her eyes filled with scrutiny and contempt. Come home with me, she said, her tone a command as if stating an indisputable fact. I'm not going back, I refused flatly. Olivia's brow furrowed, my defiance clearly surprised and annoyed her. Ethan, have you had enough of this drama? Her voice turned icy. Don't make me repeat myself. Come home with me now. And I said, I'm not going back. I met her gaze without flinching. It's nice here. I like it. You like it? Olivia laughed as if she'd heard the world's greatest joke. With what money? Sophia's? Ethan, when did you become so pathetic? The moment you get out of the hospital, you run straight to your old flame. Her words were vicious and cruel. Who I'm with and whose money I use is none of your business. My own anger flared. Olivia, I don't think we're close enough for you to be bossing me around. Not close. Olivia's eyes narrowed dangerously. Ethan, have you forgotten? I am your legal wife. You dare to hang up on me and then go fool around with another woman. Do you have any idea what I can do? What are you going to do? I cut her off, taking a step forward, closing the distance between us. Ruin my reputation. Throw me out with nothing. Go ahead, Olivia. Get your best shot. I'm a broken man with nothing to lose. But you, Miss CEO, the billionaire, I think you have a lot more to lose than I do, don't you? My advance made her instinctively take a step back. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. She had probably never seen me like this. You, she was so angry her chest heaved. You're being completely unreasonable. You're the one being unreasonable, I stared at her coldly. I'll say it one last time. I'm not going back with you. Please leave and don't disturb me. I started to close the door, but Olivia shot out her hand, jamming it in the frame. She was surprisingly strong. I couldn't shut it. Ethan, you're coming home with me today, her tone was absolute. Don't force me to use other means. Behind her, a short distance down the hall stood two large men in black suits. Her bodyguards obviously. I looked at her and suddenly smiled. Olivia, do you really think money can buy you anything? She didn't answer, just stared at me, her cold eyes screaming. So, what if I do? Fine, great. I nodded, releasing my grip on the door. I'll go back with you. But on one condition. A look of disdain crossed Olivia's face as if to say, what right do you have to make conditions? But she still said, name it. I looked her straight in the eye and said, we're divorced. I'll go back, but first you have to tell me. Who is Henry Morgan? And why did you tell me to apologize to him? The moment I said the name Henry Morgan, Olivia's expression changed dramatically. It was a complex shift, panic, guilt, and a flash of anger at having a secret exposed. Her gaze flickered away, unable to meet mine. What are you talking about? I don't know any Henry Morgan, she denied. But her voice lacked its earlier conviction. You don't. I sneered. Olivia, do you take me for an idiot? If he wasn't someone incredibly important to you, would you completely ignore your husband who just attempted suicide? Would you frantically track me down to a hotel and try to force me home? What are you so afraid of? Afraid that if I stay here, I'll get in the way of you running back to him. Every word was a scalpel, precisely cutting to her most vulnerable spot. Her face grew paler, her lips pressed into a thin, silent line. Looks like I was right. I watched her reaction, the fire in my gut burning hotter. Who is he to you? Your lover or the one that got away? You're so desperate to be with him, you can't even be bothered to pretend anymore. Is that it? Shut up. Olivia finally exploded. Ethan, don't you dare make things up. Mr. Morgan and I have a purely professional relationship. A professional relationship that requires you, a married woman, to treat him better than your own husband. The hypocrisy of it all made me laugh. A purely professional relationship. I applauded sarcastically. My CEO, your professional relationships certainly are special. So special they're worth more than your husband's life. That's not true, Olivia shot back, agitated. I was in a critical international conference call. I couldn't get away. I had my assistant handle it. So, the conference call is more important than my life, is that it? I stared into her eyes, asking the question coldly. Olivia was speechless. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Looking at her pale face, I suddenly felt tired. What was the point of arguing with someone who didn't have you in their heart? Forget it. I waved a hand dismissively and stepped back, clearing the doorway. I'll go back with you. I'm curious to see what our home has become. Olivia paused, surprised that I'd given in so easily. She gave me a suspicious look, then stepped into the room. She didn't linger, just tossed a cold command over her shoulder. Get your things. Let's go. I didn't have any things, just the ill-fitting clothes on my back and a phone containing one very hurtful text message. I followed her out of the hotel. The two bodyguards in black suits fell in silently behind us, their presence as oppressive as two mobile watchtowers. We got into a black Bentley. The interior was spacious and lavishly decorated, the air filled with an expensive perfume I didn't recognize. Olivia sat across from me and immediately took out her phone to deal with work, not even bothering to spare me a glance. I watched the city lights streak past the window, a desolate feeling settling in my heart. This was the married life I traded 5 years of my youth for. Sitting in a luxury car with my nominal wife, strangers in a shared space with nothing to say to each other. It was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. The car sped on, eventually entering a high-end gated community. Security was tight, and each mansion was set far apart, ensuring absolute privacy. The Bentley pulled up in front of a brightly lit standalone villa. "Get out," Olivia said coolly, putting her phone away. I opened the door and stepped out. The mansion before me was huge, at least 3 stories, with a massive garden and a swimming pool. In a city where property was gold, a house like this was worth a fortune. This was our home. I followed her inside. A middle-aged woman in an apron immediately came to greet us. "Ma'am, you're back. Dinner is ready." Olivia responded faintly, slipping off her heels and into a pair of slippers. "Helen, get him a pair of slippers, too." Helen glanced at me with a mix of curiosity and scrutiny before retrieving a pair of men's slippers from the shoe cabinet. I put them on and followed Olivia into the living room. It was astonishingly large with a vaulted ceiling from which hung a massive crystal chandelier that cast a brilliant light. Expensive leather sofas, gleaming marble floors, and abstract art I didn't understand adorned the walls. The entire house was decorated like a magnificent palace, but lacked even a shred of warmth. Everything in it was as cold as Olivia herself. "Go take a shower and change," Olivia said, pointing upstairs. "Your room is the first door on the left on the 2nd floor." My room. Not our room. I caught the implication in her words and sneered inwardly. It seemed we'd been sleeping in separate rooms for a long time. No thanks. I refused her kindness. I'm not that picky. I walked over to the enormous sofa and sat down. It was soft, but I felt like I was sitting on a block of ice. Olivia frowned, clearly displeased with my lack of cooperation. But she didn't press the issue and walked towards the dining room. "Dinner," she said, glancing back at me. I didn't move. "I'm not hungry." Olivia's patience finally ran out. She strode over to me, looking down at me from her full height. "Ethan, what is it you want?" A suicide attempt, disappearing, talking back, and now a hunger strike. "Do you think this is how you get my attention?" "Let me tell you, I am extremely busy. I don't have time to play these childish games with you." Her voice was sharp and shrill, filled with impatience. I looked up at her calmly, at her perfect makeup, her expensive clothes, and her beautiful eyes that were filled with annoyance and disgust. I suddenly realized that she and I were from 2 different worlds. Now, the Olivia in my memory was the girl who would read quietly in the library, who would burst into laughter at a silly joke. She might have been a bit aloof, but she was kind and warm underneath. But this woman in front of me, apart from having the same face, bore no resemblance to the girl of the past. She had become a stranger, cold, indifferent, reeking of money and superiority. Maybe I had never really known her. Or maybe the last 5 years and the immense wealth had changed her. Either way, there was no going back. "Olivia," I began, my voice quiet but crystal clear. "You're right. We don't need to play these childish games anymore." Olivia thought I was finally giving in. A mocking smile touched her lips. "So, you've finally seen reason." "Yes, I have." I nodded, looking her straight in the eye as I said, word by word, "Let's get a divorce." The smile on Olivia's face instantly froze. She stood there motionless, as if she heard something utterly unbelievable. The housekeeper, Helen, also stopped what she was doing in the dining room, staring at us in shock. The entire house fell into a dead, terrifying silence. "What? What did you say?" It took a long while for Olivia to find her voice, and when she did, it was dry and strained. I stood up, meeting her at eye level. I was a head taller than her, and from this vantage point, I could clearly see the shock and disbelief in her eyes. I repeated myself, my tone even firmer this time, leaving no room for doubt. I said, Olivia Harper, let's get a divorce. I don't want to have anything to do with a woman like you ever again. Divorce. Olivia looked as if she'd just heard the joke of the century. She stared blankly for a moment, then let out a short, sharp laugh. Ethan, what new brand of crazy is this? Who do you think you are to bring up divorce with me? Her eyes dripped with contempt and ridicule, as if she were looking at a pathetic clown who didn't know his place. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. In her world, I was nothing more than an accessory, a pet she could discard at will, but who was never allowed to leave on his own. Why don't I have the right? I asked calmly. Ms. CEO, have you forgotten that our marriage is an equal partnership? I have the right to propose marriage, and I certainly have the right to propose divorce. Equal. Olivia laughed even louder, her voice laced with sarcasm. Ethan, you want to talk to me about equality? You eat my food, wear my clothes, live in my house. Where exactly is the equality in that? Without me, you wouldn't even be able to survive. And now you want a divorce. Are you planning to leave with nothing and go beg on the streets? Her words are knives dipped in poison, stabbing deep into my heart, even though the current me felt no connection to the spineless men of the past 5 years. The humiliation was real and visceral. I took a deep breath, forcing down the rage. Olivia, don't bother trying to provoke me with that. You're right. In the past, I did live off you, but starting today, that's over. I looked at her, my gaze resolute. I'll leave with nothing. I don't want a single penny from you. I just want to end this mistake of a marriage as quickly as possible. My calm determination was clearly not what she had anticipated. The mockery on her face slowly faded, replaced by scrutiny and suspicion. What new game are you playing now? She asked, her eyes narrowing. Trying to play hard to get, using divorce to force my hand to make me treat you better. Ethan, I advise you to drop these little schemes. I'm not falling for it again. I'm not playing any games. I shook my head, feeling a wave of exhaustion. Olivia, I simply don't want to live with someone like you anymore. The thought of it makes me sick. Sick. Those words seemed to strike a nerve. Her face instantly turned ashen. Why do you have the right to feel sick? Ethan, don't forget you were the one who shamelessly chased after me, who begged and pleaded to marry me. And now that you've made it, now that you're the great CEO's husband, you're tired of me. You played your cards well. Her claims were so absurd, I had to laugh. I made it. Being the CEO's husband is something to be proud of. I shot back. So proud I have to resort to suicide just to get your attention. So proud I'm not allowed to have my own friends. So proud I've turned into a pathetic wreck even I can't stand to look at. Olivia, I want you to ask yourself, in these 3 years of marriage, have you fulfilled your duties as a wife for even a single day? Have you shown me even an ounce of respect? In your eyes, I'm probably worth less than Helen, aren't I? My accusations made her face flush red and then turn pale. She wanted to argue but couldn't find the words because everything I said was the truth. Nearby, Helen awkwardly lowered her head, pretending to clean the table while her ears were clearly perked. I don't want to argue about this pointless crap anymore, I said, feeling utterly drained. Tomorrow, we'll go to the courthouse and get the paperwork done. After that, you go your way, I'll go mine. We'll have nothing to do with each other. I don't agree, she blurted out without thinking. Her reaction was unusually strong. Why? I frowned. Aren't you tired of me? Divorce should be a relief for you. You can go find your Henry Morgan and no one will be in your way. Shut up. Don't you dare mention his name again, she snapped, her emotions running high. Regardless, I do not agree to a divorce. Ethan, I advise you to behave yourself and stop this nonsense. I'll pretend today never happened. You will stay home and you will not go anywhere. With that, she turned to go upstairs as if to unilaterally end the conversation. Stop, I called out. Olivia paused, turning back impatiently. Now what? Olivia, this isn't something you can just agree or disagree to. I stared at her coldly. If you refuse to sign the papers, then I'll see you in court. I'll file for divorce. File. Olivia looked as if I had just proposed flying to the moon. She turned and walked back toward me, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor, each sound like a hammer blow to my heart. She stopped in front of me and jabbed a finger tipped with red nail polish into my chest. "Ethan, what are you going to fight me with? Your pathetic pride or that little cop friend of yours?" Her voice was dripping with condescension and menace. "Let me tell you something. With one phone call, I can have your friend stripped of her badge by tomorrow. Do you believe me?" My pupils contracted. She was threatening me, using Sophia's career to threaten me. An uncontrollable rage erupted from my chest. I could tolerate any humiliation she directed at me, but I would not stand for her hurting the people I cared about. I grabbed her wrist, the one pointing at my chest. "Olivia, you dare touch her and see what happens." My voice was laced with a chilling cold, my eyes murderous. I was stronger than I looked and Olivia winced in pain. A look of genuine fear flashing across her face for the first time. Let go, Ethan. You're hurting me." "Hurting you?" I sneered. "Do you have any idea how much my heart hurts?" "Olivia, I'm warning you. My business has nothing to do with Sophia. If you so much as touch a hair on her head, I swear I will make you regret it for the rest of your life." "What? What are you going to do? Are you going to kill me?" Her voice trembled. "I'm not going to do anything. I'm just letting you know your threats mean nothing to me." I released her wrist and took a step back, creating distance between us. I have nothing left to lose. I'll risk it all. You, the great CEO, you have an empire to protect. Let's see who has more to lose in this game. Olivia clutched her reddening wrist, staring at me in shock. In her eyes, I must have looked like a madman, a cornered animal. "You're insane. You're actually insane," she murmured. "You're the one who drove me insane," I replied coldly. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I'm outside the courthouse. I'll be waiting. If you show up, we part ways peacefully. If you don't, expect a summons from the court." Without another look at her, I turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" Olivia yelled after me. "This place," I said without turning back, "is suffocating me. Until you agree to the divorce, I will never set foot in here again." I opened the door and walked out, not once looking back. The night air was cool on my face, a welcome balm to my chaotic mind. I walked along the quiet streets of the community until I was outside the gilded cage. I pulled out my phone, but I didn't call Sophia. I couldn't drag her into any more trouble, especially after Olivia had made her threat. I flagged down a cab on a main road and went back to the hotel. Thankfully, Sophia had used her ID to book the room, so I could still stay there. Back in the room, the first thing I did was search online for how to file for divorce. Legal articles and procedures filled the screen. Because one party was a well-known entrepreneur, the process seemed to be faster and more high-profile. I found a contact number and case filing hotline for the municipal courthouse. The next morning, I didn't go to the courthouse. I knew Olivia wouldn't be there. Instead, I called the case filing hotline directly. I clearly explained my situation to the clerk. The marriage had irretrievably broken down. The defendant, Olivia, had engaged in long-term emotional abuse and refused an amicable divorce, and I was requesting the court to grant the divorce. Because the case involved Olivia, a local celebrity entrepreneur, the court took it very seriously. The clerk carefully recorded my information and told me they would report the situation immediately, advising me to prepare all relevant evidence and wait for their call. The efficiency was startling. Just an hour later, I received an official call back from the court. A serious male voice was on the other end. "Is this Mr. Ethan Bennett? This is the Seattle Municipal Court. We have accepted your petition for divorce. Given the special circumstances of this case, we will be initiating an expedited hearing process." A surge of relief went through me. "When can we expect a court date?" I asked quickly. "Based on the current schedule, we've tentatively set it for 2 weeks from now," the man replied. "Mr. Bennett, during this time, please be sure to gather sufficient evidence to prove that the marital relationship has indeed irretrievably broken down. This will be crucial for the success of your case." 2 weeks. It was shorter than I'd expected, but it brought a new problem. How was I supposed to find evidence in 2 weeks? If I hadn't lost my memory, it might have been easy. But right now, I remembered nothing. Evidence. The word hung over me like a mountain. I lay on the hotel bed, my mind a tangled mess. Sophia knew some things, but most of what she knew was secondhand or based on her own feelings. Hardly admissible in court. Helen, the housekeeper, probably knew a lot. But she worked for Olivia. She would never testify for me. As for me, my mind was a total blank. Was this divorce going to fail because of a lack of evidence? I couldn't accept that. I picked up my phone and started digging frantically. Photos, WhatsApp chats, text messages. I was looking for any clue, any breadcrumb. The phone was clean. The photo gallery had a few landscape pictures, but not a single photo of a person. My chat history was sparse. Aside from a few irrelevant group messages, my conversation with Olivia had ended months ago, consisting of nothing but cold replies, like, okay, and, got it. This phone was so clean it felt like a crime scene that had been deliberately wiped. What was the old me thinking? Was he trying to erase the painful memories? Or was he protecting Olivia? I felt a surge of helplessness. Just as I was about to give up, a name surfaced in my mind. Henry Morgan, the man who made Olivia lose her composure. The man she used Sophia to threaten me over. If she was that protective of him, there had to be a secret between them. And that secret was likely the key to my divorce. If I didn't know him, where could I possibly find him? My first instinct was to call Sophia. With her resources, finding someone wouldn't be hard, but I immediately dismissed the thought. Olivia's threat was still fresh in my mind. I couldn't drag her into this. I had to do this myself. Henry Morgan. Henry Morgan. I racked my brain. Olivia had said their relationship was professional. And since she was now a billionaire CEO, this Henry Morgan couldn't be just anyone. I opened my phone's browser and typed, Olivia Harper, Henry Morgan, into the search bar. The moment I hit enter, a flood of results appeared. Shocking, Solstice Group CEO Olivia Harper's late-night rendezvous with mystery men. Deep dive, the men behind Olivia Harper, Apex Capital founder Henry Morgan. A business alliance or true love? Inside the Harper-Morgan business empire. The glaring headlines were accompanied by crystal-clear photos. In them, Olivia stood next to a handsome, well-built man. Sometimes at a business gala, sometimes outside a high-end restaurant, and once in a dimly lit underground parking garage. In the photos, Olivia was smiling, a radiant and gentle smile I had never seen on her face. The way she looked at him was filled with adoration and reliance, and the man, Henry Morgan, always maintained a slight distance, an air of polite but guarded formality, even when speaking with her. He looked to be in his early 30s, dressed in a sharp suit with a calm demeanor and deep-set eyes that seemed to see right through you. He exuded an aura of power. So, this was Henry Morgan, and I, the official husband, was apparently a running joke to the outside world. I found the official website for Apex Capital along with their address and contact information. Without a moment's hesitation, I got dressed and left the hotel. An hour later, I was standing in front of the skyscraper that housed Apex Capital. I walked straight to the front desk without an appointment. Hello, I'm here to see Mr. Henry Morgan. The receptionist gave me a professional smile. Sir, do you have an appointment? No, I said plainly. Just tell him my name is Ethan Bennett. He'll see me. A flicker of surprise crossed the receptionist's face, but she picked up the internal line. After a few quiet words, she hung up and gestured for me to proceed. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Morgan is waiting for you in his office on the top floor. Please follow me. Henry Morgan was actually willing to see me. I followed the receptionist into a private elevator. As it shot upwards, my heart rose with it. I didn't know what was about to happen, but I knew this was my only chance. The elevator stopped at the top floor. The receptionist led me to a heavy solid wood door and knocked. Come in, a deep magnetic male voice said from inside. I pushed the door open and walked in. The office was vast with a minimalist yet powerful design. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the entire bustling city stretched out below. A man stood with his back to me. Looking out the window, his posture was straight as a pine tree. He turned around slowly. It was the face from the photographs. Henry Morgan. In person, he had an even more commanding presence. Those deep eyes looked like they could pierce through a person's soul. He looked at me without speaking, his gaze probing and analytical. "Mr. Morgan," I spoke first, my tone respectful but not subservient. "Ethan Bennett," Henry said my name slowly, a strange curve to his lips. "I know who you are. No need for an introduction." "Then I assume you know why I'm here," I said, getting straight to the point. Henry walked to his desk and sat down, gesturing for me to take the seat opposite him. "I don't," he said coolly. "But I am curious. What gives you the nerve to come find me?" "My divorce." I looked him straight in the eye. "I want to divorce Olivia, but I need evidence." "I have a feeling you have what I need." At this, Henry raised an eyebrow as if he found this amusing. "And what makes you think I would help you?" "Because the only thing standing in the way of you and her is me," I answered without hesitation. "Mr. Morgan, let's not play games. The news photos make it clear you two are close. Helping me is helping yourself. As soon as I divorce her, she'll be free to be with you." My words caused a subtle shift in Henry's expression. He was silent for a moment, then leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers on the desk. "You have amnesia," he said. It was a statement, not a question. I was stunned. How could he possibly know? "Your eyes," Henry explained calmly. "Olivia told me you loved her to the point of obsession, that you looked at her like a pathetic dog. But the way you looked at me just now held only unfamiliarity and caution. You don't have the air of despair and brokenness a man should have after being tormented by her for 5 years. Therefore, you must have amnesia." He had unraveled my biggest secret with a single glance. This man was dangerous. Since he already knew, there was no point in hiding it. "Yes, I've forgotten the last 5 years," I admitted. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I want a divorce." "Interesting." A genuine smile touched Henry's lips for the first time, though it didn't reach his eyes, which held a hint of derision. "You with no memory is more of a man than that doormat ever was." As he spoke, he opened a drawer, took out a USB drive, and tossed it onto the desk. "What you want is on here." I was floored. I never expected him to be so direct. "What's on it?" I asked, picking up the drive. "The evidence you're looking for," Henry's tone turned frigid, "including, but not limited to, hundreds of texts from Olivia over the last 3 years complaining about you, saying you weren't worth a single hair on my head. How she locked you in the house just to have dinner with me. How she refused to take you to a doctor when your depression was at its worst. In fact, she told me she wished you would just die so she could be free." Every word from Henry was a hammer blow slamming into my heart. Even though I felt no connection to that other me, hearing these bloody facts still sent a chill down my spine and ignited an uncontrollable rage. "Also," Henry continued, his eyes filled with undisguised disgust. "On here, you'll find a photo she sent me. Pictures of you crying, kneeling, even self-harming. She sent them to me like they were a joke to prove how devoted she was to me, to show the lengths she would go to push her own husband over the edge for my sake." My hand clenched around the USB drive. Humiliation, anger, disgust. A storm of emotion swirled inside me, making my body tremble. "Why are you helping me?" I looked up, staring him down. "Like I said, helping you is helping myself." Henry's tone returned to one of indifference. "I need you to disappear from her life completely." He stood up and walked around the desk, towering over me. "Take this, file your lawsuit, and get your divorce. Then take what's left of your dignity and get the hell out of our world. Never show your face in front of Olivia again. That is my only condition." His words were dripping with condescension and command. But I didn't care. I needed that evidence. "Fine, I agree," I said, standing up, the USB drive clutched tightly in my palm. "A pleasure doing business with you," Henry said, his face devoid of any warmth. I nodded and turned to leave. Just as I reached the door, Henry spoke again. "Wait." I stopped and looked back at him. "One more thing," Henry's brow furrowed slightly. "Olivia's mental state is highly unstable, almost paranoid. She won't let you go easily. When she finds out you have this evidence, she might do something irrational. Watch your back. His words were a warning. I didn't reply. I just opened the door and walked out. Henry watched me leave, his expression complex. He didn't tell me that just before I arrived, Olivia had called him, her voice bordering on hysteria, begging him not to see me, not to help me. And he had chosen to help me because he knew better than anyone that only with me gone for good would that mad woman, Olivia, have any chance of returning to normal. I walked out of the Apex Capitol building, the sunlight feeling harsher than before. The USB drive in my hand felt like a red-hot brand searing my palm. I couldn't wait to see what was on it, to see with my own eyes what kind of hell my life had been. I hailed a cab and headed back to the hotel. Just as I was about to get out, I saw Henry exiting the building. He was heading somewhere, about to get into his own car. Our eyes met for a brief moment. Then we both looked away. I didn't think anything of it. I paid the driver and opened the door. As I swung one leg out of the car, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision caught my eye. A silver-white van was barreling down the street at an insane, unnatural speed, heading straight for Henry on the sidewalk. It was moving too fast. Henry had no time to react. My mind went blank. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was just human instinct. Maybe it was because he had just given me the key to my freedom. Almost subconsciously, I threw myself in his direction with all my strength, yelling, "Look out!" I slammed into Henry, knocking him to the ground. At the same instant, an excruciating, tearing pain erupted from my right leg. Crunch. A deafening impact exploded in my ears. My body was thrown into the air by an immense force and then slammed back down onto the pavement. I felt like my right leg had just been shattered. Pain, an unspeakable, searing pain shot from my right leg and consumed my entire body. It felt like the bones had been crushed into powder. A warm, sticky liquid quickly soaked through my pants. I lay on the cold pavement, my vision blurring. I've been hit. I've been hit by a car trying to save Henry Morgan. The thought flashed through my mind before being overwhelmed by a fresh wave of agony. Are you okay? Henry's voice, laced with a rare note of panic, sounded next to my ear. I had knocked him clear, and aside from a few scrapes, he was unharmed. He scrambled to his feet, rushed to my side, and saw my mangled, bloody leg. He sucked in a sharp breath and was about to pull out his phone to call 911. The hit-and-run van was already gone, lost in the flow of traffic. Onlookers were gasping, some were calling the police, others an ambulance. I was in too much pain to speak, cold sweat pouring down my face, my teeth chattering. Just then, a glaring red sports car screeched to a halt at the curb. The door flew open and Olivia burst out. Her face was a mask of terror and panic as she ran. Not to me, but directly to Henry. "Henry, are you okay? Are you hurt?" She grabbed his arm, frantically checking him over, her voice cracking with sobs. She completely ignored me, lying in a pool of my own blood, as if I were nothing more than a piece of scenery. In that moment, my heart felt like it had been plunged into ice water, cold and hard. I looked at her, my supposed wife whose only concern at this moment of life and death was for another man. "I'm fine," Henry said, pushing her hand away, his brow furrowed. He pointed at me on the ground. "But your husband is hurt badly." Only then did Olivia deign to spare me a glance. When she saw my blood-soaked leg, her eyes showed no hint of worry or compassion. Instead, a thick wave of disgust and impatience washed over her face. "Here we go again," she said, her voice dripping with cold sarcasm. "Ethan, you'll really stop at nothing to get my sympathy, won't you? What is this, the pity play? You think putting on such a realistic performance will make me believe you?" A performance? I was lying on the ground with a wound so deep you could see bone, bleeding out onto the asphalt. And in her eyes, it was all an act. A profound sense of absurdity and sorrow gripped my heart. I looked at her beautiful, venomous face and suddenly wanted to laugh. I laughed at myself for not hesitating for a single second before jumping in front of that van. I laughed at myself for holding onto a sliver of foolish hope when I saw her running towards us. I laughed at the man I used to be who must have been so blind to have fallen in love with such a heartless, cruel woman. "He's not acting," Henry's voice rose, tight with suppressed anger. "Olivia, are you blind? He just saved my life. He got hit by that vent pushing me out of the way. His leg is saving you. Olivia cut him off, her voice shrill. Henry, don't let him fool you. This is obviously a scene he staged himself. He knew I was coming to find you. So, he cooked up this whole tragic act to drive a wedge between us. A man like him is capable of anything. Her logic was as ridiculous as it was pathological, revealing a deep-seated paranoia. In her mind, I was so despicable that everything I did, no matter what, was part of some manipulative scheme. Julian stared at her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. You probably never imagined a person could be so cold-blooded. Olivia, you're being irrational, he said coldly, pulling out his own phone to call for an ambulance. Henry, don't bother with him. Olivia grabbed his arm. Come with me. I'll take you to a hospital to get checked out. Your health is what's important. He's a grown man. He's tough. He's not going to die. She tried to physically drag Henry away. Lying on the ground, my consciousness began to fade from blood loss. I could hear their argument. Every word a dull knife sawing back and forth across my heart. I saw Henry try to say something else, but Olivia started crying, her voice pleading. Henry, please just come with me. I'm scared. I'm so scared something happened to you. In the end, Henry let her pull him away. Olivia shoved him into the red sports car. Before he got in, he looked back at me, his eyes filled with a complex storm of emotions. Guilt, anger, and a flicker of pity. Then the car's engine roared to life, and they were gone. They left. My wife with the men she loved left. They left me lying on the cold street like a stray dog. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder. Oh my God, was that his wife? How could you do that? He was hit so hard. There's so much blood. And she said he was faking. And the other guy, the one who got saved, just left, too. What is wrong with people these days? Forget that, man. Someone called 911. His leg is still bleeding. Their words of sympathy reached my ears, but brought no warmth, only a bitter, biting irony. I closed my eyes. The pain was still there, but the pain in my heart had long since eclipsed it. I don't know how much time passed, long enough for my body to feel stiff and cold. Finally, the wail of a siren grew closer. Paramedics rushed over and began emergency treatment. Patient has significant blood loss, open fracture of the right tibia, heavily contaminated wound, showing signs of shock. We need to move now. I was lifted onto a stretcher and loaded into the ambulance. In the final moment before the doors closed, I used my last bit of strength to look at the spot on the pavement where I had been lying. All that was left was a jarring pool of dark red blood. Slowly starting to congeal. I clenched my fist. The USB drive I was still clutching dug painfully into my palm. Olivia Harper, I won't forget this. Everything I have suffered today, I will one day repay 100 times over. When I woke up again, I was back in a hospital. The familiar smell of antiseptic, the familiar white ceiling. But this time, my right leg was elevated in a heavy cast dotted with faint blood stains. A deep, throbbing pain was setting in as the anesthesia wore off. A nurse was changing my four. She smiled when she saw I was awake. You're up. How are you feeling? Pain, I squeezed the word out through gritted teeth. Hang in there. The anesthesia is wearing off, so it's going to hurt, the nurse said, her movements gentle. You had a close call. You were going into shock when they brought you in. It's a comminuted fracture in your right leg. Shattered. The cleanup took a long time and you've got over 40 stitches inside and out. The doctor said that even when it heals, you'll probably feel it on rainy days for the rest of your life. 40 stitches, a shattered bone. My life hadn't even had a chance to restart and I was already a cripple. And the person responsible for all of it hadn't even offered a simple apology. How ironic. Nurse, how long was I out? Since your surgery ended yesterday afternoon. Almost a full day, she replied. Where's your family? We tried calling a wife in your contacts yesterday, but she never picked up. Do you have anyone else we can call? She didn't pick up. A cold smile formed on my lips. Of course, she wouldn't. She was probably with her precious Henry at the best private hospital, getting him the most thorough checkup imaginable. Why would she care if her husband lived or died? No, I said, closing my eyes wearily. I don't have any family. The nurse sighed, but didn't press further. She finished up and left. Once again, I was alone in the room. Pain washed over me in waves, battering my nerves. I clenched my jaw, saying nothing, letting the cold sweat soak my back. I told myself to remember this feeling, to remember this pain, this utter despair of being abandoned. They would become my greatest strength. After what felt like an eternity, the door to my room creaked open softly. I thought it was the nurse and didn't open my eyes. Then, a familiar yet utterly repulsive scent of perfume wafted over. My eyes snapped open. Standing in the doorway was Olivia. She had changed her clothes. Gone was the aggressive power suit from yesterday, replaced by a simple white dress. She wore no makeup. Her exquisite face was etched with exhaustion, fear, and something I had never seen before. A deep, profound sorrow and regret. Her eyes were red and swollen like peaches, fixed on my casted leg. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. She took one slow, deliberate step after another toward my bed as if she were walking on hot coals. "Ethan," she began, her voice raw and broken, filled with an endless trembling pain. She reached my bedside and looked at me, tears streaming down her face like broken pearls. I turned my head away in disgust. I didn't want to see her pathetic act. What game was she playing now? Did Henry get a conscience and chew her out, sending her here to put on a show? But what she said next left me completely stunned. She reached out a hand as if to touch me, but then snatched it back as if my body were searing hot iron. She looked at me, her eyes blurry with tears, and spoke in a voice that was almost a whisper, a voice choked with grief. "You were always so scared of pain, ever since you were a little boy. A wound this bad, it must hurt so much. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I'm late." What did she just say? I was scared of pain since I was a little boy. Her words were like a key, unlocking a dusty, forgotten corner of my memory. Fragmented, hazy images flooded my mind. When I was a kid, I fell and scraped my knee, and I cried my eyes out. A little girl with a ponytail awkwardly wiped my tears with her handkerchief, saying in a tiny voice, "Ethan, don't cry. I'll blow on it, and it won't hurt anymore." The little girl's face slowly merged with the face of the Olivia standing before me. A sharp pain shot through my head, and the images vanished. I stared at her, bewildered. How could she know about my childhood? As far as I knew, we met in college. No, that's not right. According to my remaining memories, we were definitely college classmates. Our lives never crossed before then. So, what did she mean? Had she investigated my past, or? I looked at the grief on her face, so real it seemed impossible to fake, and a ridiculous theory began to form in my mind. But I quickly snuffed it out. Whatever she was planning, whatever new game she was playing, it didn't change the fact that she had abandoned me on the street to bleed out. A late apology is worth less than trash. "Cut the disgusting act," I said coldly, my voice devoid of any emotion. "What are you doing here?" "Came to see if I was dead yet." "Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm still alive. Doing just fine." My words were a knife that plunged straight into her heart. Olivia's body shuddered violently, her face growing even paler as the tears flowed faster. "No, that's not it, Ethan. Please, let me explain." She tried to defend herself, her voice so choked with sobs she could barely speak. "Yesterday, I wasn't thinking straight. I thought you were acting again, right?" I finished her sentence, my tone dripping with sarcasm. "Olivia, in your mind, am I just a clown who's always putting on a show? If I actually died right in front of you, would you still think it was my final performance to get your attention?" "No, that's not it." She shook her head frantically, tears flying everywhere. "I was wrong, Ethan. I truly know I was wrong. Please, just forgive me this one time, okay? I'm begging you." She was crying hysterically, even trying to grab my hand. "Don't touch me," I snapped, yanking my hand back. "You're filthy." The sudden movement sent a jolt of pain through my injured leg. My face went white. Ethan. Olivia was terrified when she saw my pained expression. She wanted to help but didn't dare get closer. Are you okay? Does it hurt? I'll get the doctor. Yes, I'll get the doctor. She turned in a panic and started to run out of the room. Stop, I called out. She froze, turning back to look at me helplessly like a child who had been caught doing something wrong. Get out, I said, looking at her, enunciating each word. I don't want to see you again. Get out of my room. No, I won't go, Olivia shook her head, crying. Ethan, you need someone to take care of you. I'm not leaving. I'm staying here to look after you. I don't need you, I practically roared. I told you to get out. Are you deaf? No, she stood her ground stubbornly, her eyes swimming with tears. You can hit me. You can yell at me. Just don't make me leave. Okay. I know you're in a lot of pain. You need someone with you. Her persistence and this sudden display of devotion filled me with nausea and irritation. I didn't want to waste another breath on her. I grabbed the phone from my nightstand, unlocked it, found Sophia's number, and dialed it right in front of her. The call connected almost immediately. Ethan, how are you? I heard from a colleague in traffic division that you were in an accident yesterday, that it was bad. Sophia's voice was full of anxiety and concern. I'm fine, not dead yet, I replied calmly, my eyes fixed on Olivia. I saw her body go rigid when I made the call, the color draining from her face. Which hospital? What room? I'm coming right now, Sophia said urgently. I told her my location. Okay, stay put. I'm off today. I'll be there soon. After hanging up, I tossed the phone aside and closed my eyes, refusing to look at Olivia any longer. The room fell into a dead silence, broken only by Olivia's suppressed, quiet sobs. She didn't leave. She just stood there by my bed, motionless like a weeping statue. I had no idea what she was trying to accomplish. But I knew that whatever it was too late. Some things, once they happen, can't be undone. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be healed. A broken mirror can never be made whole again. About 20 minutes later, the door was pushed open again. Sophia rushed in like a storm. The moment she saw the thick cast on my leg, her eyes instantly turned red. Ethan. She hurried to my bedside, but she stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Olivia standing in the corner. Sophia's face darkened immediately. She looked Olivia up and down, her gaze filled with hostility and undisguised scorn. Well, look who it is. If it isn't the great Miss CEO, so busy with her work that she can't even be bothered to check on her husband after he's been hit by a car. Her voice was cold and sharp. What brings you here today? Did you finally finish your meetings? Or did your precious Mr. Morgan finally have time to tell you to get lost? Sophia had never been one to mince words, especially not with Olivia. I expected Olivia with her proud nature to lash out and start a fight. But to my surprise, she just stood there silently, taking it all without a word of protest. She kept her head down, letting Sophia's harsh words pierce her like knives. Cat got your tongue. Sophia sneered when she got no response. You had plenty to say yesterday when you left him bleeding on the street, didn't you? Weren't you the one saying he was just acting? What's the matter? Nothing to say now that you see him like this. Or are you just cooking up a new script, planning to have Ethan play along in some touching scene of marital bliss? I'm sorry, Olivia suddenly spoke. Her voice was small and hoarse, filled with endless guilt. I was wrong. It was all my fault. She looked up first at Sophia, then at me, her swollen eyes filled with a desperate plea. I admit it. I was a monster yesterday. I wasn't human. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm just begging for a chance to make it up to him. Her attitude stunned even Sophia. Was this the same arrogant, untouchable Olivia? Make it up. Sophia recovered and scoffed. With what? Your money, Miss Harper. Ethan might not be rich, but he hasn't sunk so low as to trade a leg for your dirty money. No, Olivia shook her head frantically. That's not what I mean. I will take care of him until he's fully recovered. From now on, whatever he wants, I'll do it. As long as he doesn't hurt himself again." As she spoke, her gaze shifted to me. The pain and pity in her eyes so thick you could cut it with a knife. "Ethan, I know you hate me. You don't want to see me right now, and that's okay. I'll just wait outside. If you need anything, just call me. I won't leave you again. Not for a second." With that, she gave me one last deep look, then silently turned and walked out of the room. She didn't go far. She just leaned against the wall outside, her thin, stubborn silhouette visible through the small glass window in the door. Sophia watched this unfold, her brows knitted together tightly. "Ethan, what the hell was that?" She walked over to my bed and whispered, "Did something happen to her? She's like a completely different person." I shook my head. I wanted to know what she was up to, too. This sudden transformation, this display of utter humility, felt incredibly strange and unsettling. It was as if the Olivia standing before me had someone else's soul living inside her body. The next 2 months were spent in the hospital. My leg healed slowly. The doctor said it would be at least half a year before I could put any real weight on it. Those 2 months became the strangest period of my life. Olivia, true to her word, never left my side. She cancelled all her business meetings and appointments, spending every day at the hospital. She was no longer the high and mighty CEO, but the most humble of caretakers. She brought me water, peeled fruit, and massaged my uninjured leg to prevent muscle atrophy. Every day, she would order nourishing soups from the most expensive restaurants and try to feed them to me spoonful by spoonful. When I refused, she would coax me patiently like a child. When I yelled at her to get out, she would just stand there with red-rimmed eyes, listening silently until I was tired, then go back to what she was doing. When I swiped everything she bought off the table, she would clean it up without a word and go buy new things. At night, when the pain kept me from sleeping, she would sit by my bed and tell me stories. Stories about our childhood, things I had long forgotten, or rather things that didn't exist in my 2020 memories. She said we were actually neighbors and that we were best friends before my family moved away when I was 7. She said I used to follow her around everywhere, calling her Liv. She said I once got bitten by a big dog trying to protect her and that I still had a faint scar on my arm to prove it. She said I was always terrified of needles and would only let the nurse give me a shot if she was there holding my hand. The stories she told were too specific, too real. They made me wonder if my own memories were the ones that were wrong. But no matter what she said or did, my heart remained unmoved. I just watched her with cold detachment. I watched her face grow more haggard by the day, watched the dark circles under her eyes deepen, watched her become cautious and subservient in her desperate attempts to please me. I felt no gratitude, only disgust. If all of this had happened before the car accident, before she left me bleeding on the street, maybe I would have softened. But now it was too late. A person only learns to cherish something after they've completely lost it. This belated affection might move her, but to me, it was worthless. Besides, I had no idea what her true motive was. Was she trying to save her marriage to protect her public image as an entrepreneur? Had Henry Morgan rejected her completely, leaving me as her next best option, or was this just another, more sophisticated performance? I couldn't be bothered to guess. My only goal was divorce. Sophia visited almost every day. She watched Olivia's transformation, her attitude shifting from initial scorn to confusion and finally to silence. "Ethan, I don't get her at all anymore," she whispered to me one day while Olivia was out getting water. "If this is all an act, it's an expensive one. Solstice Group stock has dropped almost 20% because she's been ignoring the company for 2 months. She's lost hundreds of millions on this performance. So what?" I replied, my face a blank mask. Can a few $100 million buy me back my leg? Can it erase the fact that she abandoned me on the street? Sophia sighed and didn't say anything more. She knew my heart was already dead. During that time, Henry Morgan visited once. He came alone one afternoon. The moment Olivia saw him, her face went white, her eyes filled with panic and avoidance. Henry didn't even look at her, he walked straight to my bed. "How's the leg?" he asked in a low voice, his eyes on the cast. "Not dead yet," I answered flatly. "I'm sorry," he said, and he sounded sincere. I shouldn't have left like that the other day. It had nothing to do with you, I said, looking at him. She was the one who wanted to leave, not you. Henry was silent for a moment. Then he took a credit card from his pocket and placed it on my nightstand. There's 10 million on this. Consider it compensation. The pin is 68. I looked at the card but didn't touch it. I don't need it. It's not charity, Henry said calmly. It's what you deserve. You saved my life and my life is worth more than this. Also, I found the driver of the hit-and-run van. He's a junkie who was paid to do a job, but he doesn't know who hired him. The trail goes cold with him. My heart sank, so it wasn't an accident. I understand, and I nodded. Henry glanced at Olivia, who was standing frozen in the corner, not daring to come closer. His expression turned to ice. Olivia, come outside with me. Olivia's body flinched, but she obediently followed him out. They talked in the hallway for a long time. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see Olivia crying and shaking her head while Henry remained stone-faced. Eventually, Henry left. When Olivia came back into the room, she looked like all the life had been drained out of her. But she said nothing, just silently walked to my bedside and started peeling an apple for me. Her hand was shaking so badly she almost cut herself several times. I didn't ask what they talked about. It was none of my business. 2 months passed quickly. My leg, thanks to the doctor's excellent care and Olivia's tireless nursing, was healing better than expected. Finally, the day of my discharge arrived. Sophia came to pick me up. The court had also been in touch. The hearing had been postponed because of my accident. But now that I was out, a new date had been set for next week. I was at the front desk handling the paperwork, leaning on a crutch. Olivia followed silently behind me, carrying my bags. She had lost a lot of weight in the past 2 months. The dress that once fit her perfectly now hung loosely on her frame. Ethan, she called out softly from behind me. I stopped but didn't turn around. What is it? Can we not get a divorce? Her voice was a fragile, desperate plea. I can change. Whatever you want me to be, I'll change. I'll sell the company and stay home with you. Okay. Her words were laughable. If she felt this way now, why did she act the way she did before? Olivia. I turned slowly to face her, to look at the face filled with desperation and sorrow. My own expression was calm, without a ripple of emotion. Do you really think saying all this now makes any difference? My question drained the last bit of color from her face. See you in court next week, I said, then turned and with Sophia's help, walked towards the hospital exit without a backward glance. I didn't see her sink to the floor behind me, burying her face in her knees, letting out a choked, despairing sob. After being discharged, I didn't go back to that so-called home. Sophia took me to a small apartment she had rented for me. It wasn't big, but it was clean and sunny. I waited there quietly for the court date. During that week, Olivia didn't bother me. But every day, containers of homemade food and soup would appear outside my door. I never touched any of it. Finally, the day of the rescheduled hearing arrived. Accompanied by Sophia, I went to the courthouse. I saw Olivia standing at the entrance. She was wearing a simple black dress, no makeup. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were strangely calm. When she saw me, she gave a small nod in acknowledgement. We walked into the courtroom, one after the other. Inside, the judge asked if there was any possibility of reconciliation. I shook my head firmly. No. The judge turned to Olivia. Everyone, including me, expected her to stubbornly refuse the divorce as she had before, but she just looked at me quietly for a few seconds, then turned to the judge and said softly but with perfect clarity, I agree to the divorce. Her answer stunned everyone in the room, myself included. All the evidence I had prepared, the USB drive containing the ugly history of our marriage was now unnecessary. She had just agreed. The rest of the proceedings went by in a blur. Since both parties consented and I waived any claim to marital assets, the judge granted the divorce on the spot. Half an hour later, Olivia and I walked out of the courthouse, each holding a certificate of divorce. The sky was overcast, threatening rain. Ethan, Olivia called out to me. I stopped and looked at her. I expected her to say something, to cry, to lash out, but she did none of those things. She just looked at me, her eyes filled with a deep sorrow and a sense of release that I couldn't quite understand. She gave me a smile that looked more painful than tears. "Congratulations, you're free." She paused, taking a deep breath as if gathering all her strength, and said her final words to me one by one. "Ethan, I wish you peace and happiness for the rest of your life." Her words were like a feather landing softly on the surface of my heart without making a ripple. Peace and happiness for the rest of your life. Such a beautiful wish. But coming from her mouth, it felt like the cruelest irony. The person who had destroyed the last 5 years of my life, who had nearly killed me and left me a cripple, was now wishing me well. I looked at her, my face a motionless mask. "Thanks," I said flatly by way of a reply. Then I turned and on my crutch, I walked away step by step toward where Sophia was parked. I didn't look back. I never wanted to see her face again. Never wanted to have anything to do with her. From this day forward, the name Olivia Harper would be erased from my life completely. Sophia was leaning against her car. When she saw me coming, she rushed over to help. "All done?" she asked. "Yeah," I nodded, casually tossing the divorce certificate into my coat pocket. To me, it wasn't a medal of freedom, just a final punctuation on a humiliating chapter of my life. "So, she didn't give you any more trouble?" Sophia asked, glancing cautiously at Olivia, who was still standing at the courthouse entrance. "No," I said, getting into the car. "She wished me peace and happiness." Sophia blinked, then let out a sharp laugh. "She's got some nerve. Come on, I'm taking you out to celebrate. You've escaped hell and been reborn." "Okay, I want to go to that old taco truck we practically lived at in college." "You got it." She started the car, hit the gas, and we merged into traffic. In the rearview mirror, I saw Olivia's figure grow smaller and smaller until she blurred and finally disappeared. My heart felt nothing. No joy, no sorrow, no relief. It was like waking up from a long, absurd nightmare. Epilogue: Olivia's perspective. I stood at the courthouse entrance and watched Ethan's retreating back. I watched him get into Sophia's car and disappear from my sight. Only when he was completely gone did I look away. I looked down at the divorce certificate in my hand. A tear fell, then another, splashing onto the cold cover. I had lost. I had lost everything. I was reborn, carrying all the endless regret and love from my past life. And I returned to this exact moment in time. But I was too late. I came back to a time when he was already broken by my actions. His heart frozen solid. In my previous life, at this point, I hadn't even woken up to my mistakes. It was only much later that I understood that Henry Morgan, the man I used to make Ethan jealous, actually had feelings for me and had done many despicable things. His actions were what truly drove Ethan and me apart for good. In that life, after I finally understood, I tried everything to win him back, but it was just as futile as it was in this one. All for the sake of some ridiculous pride and some dating advice that had proven to be disastrous. I had hurt the men who loved me more than life itself. I had hurt the boy who since he was 7 had followed me around calling me Liv. The boy who would rush in to protect me without a second thought when I was being bullied. The boy who would search the entire city for my favorite soup when I was sick. The boy who willingly gave up his career and his dignity just to stay by my side. Yes, I knew everything he had done. I was so in love with him. I even asked his best friend Sophia for advice on how to win him over. Sophia told me Ethan likes them cool and aloof. So from that day on, I treated him with a deliberate coldness and it worked. He seemed to fall for me even harder. After that, I trusted Sophia's advice blindly. Later, after we were married, Sophia said that for a marriage to be strong, it needed to be tested by crisis. So I started acting cold and distant, enduring the pain it caused me. When he started attempting suicide out of despair, I was terrified, but I still pretended not to care until 3 years into our marriage, my game backfired. Ethan really was done with me. It was only then that I realized Sophia had been lying to me. But when I angrily threatened to go after Sophia, he reacted like a furious lion. That was the moment I panicked. I didn't know what to do. My only thought was to use Henry to make him jealous again, to make him come back to me. But I was wrong. Sophia had lied. Love was about two people giving their hearts freely, not about one person endlessly taking and trampling on the other. In my past life, by the time I realized this, he was already determined to divorce me. I could only watch from afar as he rebuilt his life, started a new career, and found a new woman who was 1,000 times better for him than I ever was. I could only hide in the shadows, my heart breaking every time I saw him. I never dared to approach him. I had lost that right. Years later, Henry, bitter over his business and personal failures, tried to have Ethan killed. I was the one who took the knife for him. In the moment of my death, I felt no fear, only a sense of release. It was the last thing I could do for him. I thought that was the end. But when I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. Reborn into the day after Ethan's car accident. I was ecstatic. I thought heaven had given me a second chance. Even though it was already so late, I wanted to try to atone, to fix things. But I soon realized I was wrong. It really was too late. The Ethan of this timeline already hated my guts because I had with my self-righteous, cold, and cruel methods personally shattered his last hope. I had left him bleeding on the street. Even though I had rushed to the hospital like a mad woman the moment I came back to life, it was too late. But I wouldn't give up. I dropped everything and stayed by his side like a sinner atoning for crimes. I learned to care for him, to please him, to love him. I tried to repay the debt I owed him from our past life piece by piece. I foolishly thought that if I just tried hard enough, he would soften. He would come back. But I forgot the man he was now, just like in my previous life, was no longer the Ethan who had lost himself in his love for me. He was an independent man with dignity. His soul was his own again. My atonement in his eyes was just a disgusting performance. My deep love for him was worth less than paper. When Henry found me and showed me the contents of that USB drive, I broke down. I saw the monster I had been in my past life. I saw how I had complained about Ethan to Henry using the most vicious words. Even if that wasn't what I truly felt in my heart, it had happened. In that moment, I finally understood. The damage was too deep. There was no hope for us. So, in court, I agreed to the divorce. I couldn't selfishly bind him with the chains of a marriage to someone he no longer loved. I couldn't be the source of his pain and disgust any longer. The only thing I could do was let him go. Let him be free. Let him live the life he wanted. I stood at the courthouse entrance, looking up at the sky as the rain finally began to fall. The cold drops mingled with the tears on my face. I took out my phone and called my assistant. "I need you to do something for me." My voice was terrifyingly calm. "Of course, Ms. Harper, what do you need?" "Anonymously transfer 50% of my shares in the Solstice Group to Mr. Ethan Bennett. Use the best trust company you can find. Make sure he never finds out it came from me." "Ms. Harper, this is," my assistant gasped in shock. "Just do it," I cut him off. "And one more thing, use every resource we have to find out who was behind the hit on Henry Morgan. I need to know if that person was trying to hurt Ethan, too." "Yes, Ms. Harper." I hung up and put the phone back in my purse. And now I was finally awake. This was the last thing I could do for him. In my past life, I protected him with my life. In this one, I would do the same. I would protect him and ensure his safety for the rest of his days because I owed him that much. I tilted my head back, letting the cold rain wash over my face. "Ethan, I love you." I would never have the right to say those words to him again. I could only hope that in a life without me, he would truly find peace and happiness, the life he deserved.